All right, here we go. So I am on the new Ariel Rider Grizzly. This is an electric bike that can go up to like 33, 34 miles per hour. And this has dual motors, dual batteries, and also dual suspension here that is making this really bumpy ride as comfortable as can be. And it can get up to like a top speed of like 33, 34 miles per hour. And it's just a really powerful electric bike that allows me to go off-road like this. Okay, so now let's talk about the specs of this bad boy. So first off, I've been using this bike for about 2-3 months now, and this is kind of like the first gen of it. If you buy it today, you're gonna be getting one with updated specs. So this bike that I have right here in front of me has dual 750 watt motors, but the new one will have dual 1000 watt motors. So that's a nice bump up. And then also this does have dual suspensions on the front and the rear, but this bike that I've been using, you can only adjust the suspension on the rear, but the new one will allow you to adjust both suspensions to get that perfect feel and that perfect ride that you want. And this also does have a dual battery design, but the newer version of this bike does have more capacity in those batteries. So that means you're going to be getting a longer range with that new bike, but that's where the differences stop. Everything else I show you and talk about is going to be the same. So you have dual hydraulic disc brakes on the front and the back, and you have your controls here on the handlebars. And then also you do have your 7-speed controls right here to be able to adjust them on the fly. And you also do have this bell right here, which brings me to my first complaint about this bike, because I think this bike is so powerful, and because you can go so fast and close those distances, I think that it would have been better to have an actual horn on this bike to give people enough warning and to be loud enough. So if you are coming up close to them, I think this bell is made for like regular bikes, but not for a beast like this. And if you haven't already guessed, yes, you can take the batteries off of this bike and bring them inside to charge them and leave the bike in the garage or outside. And these batteries do come with 2 separate keys to allow you to do that. So make sure you bring both keys with you on the go. And also one thing I forgot to mention earlier that's different with this one and the newer version is that this bike only came with 1 single charger for both of the batteries, but the new version will come with 2 chargers so you can charge them up at the same time. Now you also have a pretty big and bright LCD display on this, and it's plenty bright, so when I am using this out in bright sunlight and looking down on the screen, I can still see everything clearly. So it shows your speed, it shows your distance traveled, it can show you how much voltage that is left in your batteries, or you can choose to have it show the battery percentage. Now one thing about that, I had one little kind of issue with the battery percentage, is that on like 2 or 3 rides, all of a sudden it would just go away. Like the rest of the screen was on, all the other information was there, but I couldn't see the remaining battery percentage of my batteries. Now I did turn the bike off and on, and that did bring it up. Sometimes it worked for the rest of the time, but the other times it eventually turned off again. Then when I went to go charge this bike up, and the next time I went for a ride, it didn't have that same issue. So that may be something that can be fixed in a software update. Now let's talk about this seat. So on their website, they do sell a long saddle, which is a longer version of the seat for $100. And I low-key wish that they ship that by default with this bike, because I want to have that extra room to be able to sit back and forth. And because I'm about 6 feet tall, I do find that my knees are just a little bit higher up on this bike than I wanted to. And when I naturally sit down on this bike, I kind of sit back on this hump right here. But in general, I will say that the seat is comfortable. And after you break it in for a little while, I find that I can ride for about 30 miles and not feel like I need to adjust myself. And another benefit of this shorter seat is that you do have a place back here where you can mount some more storage options, so you can put like a basket or a rack or something back here to be able to carry things with you. But again, another advantage of having that longer saddle, if it came by default with it, is that you can add an additional rider on this bike, and this bike has plenty of power to carry 2 people. And you do have a couple of foot pegs right here on the back of the bike that will allow someone to be able to rest their feet on. Now you also have a pretty big headlight on the front that does a decent enough job at night to light up the path in front of me. And on the rear battery, you do have an integrated tail light inside of there. So when you press on the brake lever, that will light up that back light. But you know what, man, enough with all the specs and the paperwork and stuff. Now let's just talk about how it is to ride this. So the first thing I will say that this thing has a lot of torque to it. So do be careful when you first get on the ride, because the throttle is a little sensitive. So as soon as you press it back a little bit, this bike just wants to go. Once you get a hang of it, it'll be a lot more comfortable to to kind of get a smooth start, but just be aware of that. But yeah, this bike does have enough torque, so when you're at a red light and you need to go, you're gonna be passing up or actually just getting ahead of all the other cars next to you, because this thing can get up to its top speed of around like 34 miles per hour with no problem. And speaking of the speed, look, I weigh about 228 pounds right now. I know I need to lose some weight and ride my bike like him a little bit more. But this bike was able to get me up to around like 33 miles per hour pretty consistently, even with my camera backpack and all of my gear for this particular trip. Now, along with using the throttle, you do have 6 levels of pedal assist with this bike. So that means while you're pedaling, it's going to be working in conjunction with the motors to be able to get this bike moving. So that means if you're trying to go as far as you can as far as the distance, you want to use that pedal assist and not just rely on the throttle. And so I'm going to be putting up on the screen the different speeds that I was able to get with the different levels of pedal assist. And when you combine those with the 7-speed, going up things like hills and stuff is a breeze with this. Well, most of the time. Okay, so look, that was a big fail, but I got a little too aggressive with this bike, but it almost made it up that pretty steep hill. And that hill went up a decent amount of ways, and also the grass was a little slippery and wet. And look, I did kind of punk out a little bit at the end because I felt myself leaning back. And maybe if I just went all the way full throttle, I could have got up it. But even for that failed attempt, that shows you the power that this bike does have. And when you're not falling off your bike like me, the ride on this bike is really comfortable because of the dual suspensions. And I haven't changed or tinkered with anything out of the box. This is straight from the factory, and when I'm going off-road, going over potholes, riding in the street, everything is just smooth as butter. And speaking of going off-road, look, this bike is built like a tank. Now, it weighs about like 104 pounds, so look, I could pick it up with one hand, but it is a very heavy bike to try to get in and out of your car or your vehicle. So it's not one of your typical regular e-bikes out there. You have to kind of plan when you do want to move this thing. And oh, I forgot to talk about the paint job and just the general design of this bike. So look, when I was looking at this bike on the website, I didn't like it at first, but when I got it in person, I really started to love this two-tone design. You got like the candy apple red with the black finish. But there is one thing I would change with the design, and that's just the amount of logos and stickers all over this bike. Look, I'm cool with the Ariel rider on the center tube right here, and also the Grizzly logos on the bottom, but the stickers on the batteries might be a little bit too much for me, so I might take those off. And then you also have this 52 volts here for the battery on the back. I would take that off, but I like the Ariel rider kind of logo here on the back of the seat. That looks really nice, but just in general, this bike does kind of stick out a little bit. All right, so now for a change of scenery, and this wasn't on purpose because I forgot to bring extra batteries, so when I was out there on the bridge, my camera died. But let's finish up this review right now, and let's get to the range portion of this. So again, I'm using the previous version, but this was rated for around 60 miles. But if you were to buy the new version today, that is rated to give you around 75 miles of range. Now, again, those ranges are coming from the manufacturer. In real world use, you can definitely expect maybe a drop off in a lot of cases. So for me, I feel confident in saying that this previous version, that most people would have been able to get around 50 miles, and that's using a combination of the throttle and pedal assist like level 2 and level 3. So that still is really great, but I can only imagine what it is with the newer version. You can probably expect to get maybe around 65 miles or so. So that's really, really good. Now, there is a YouTuber called Shreddy McSkate, and he did a range test using both motors, both batteries, and only the throttle. So he used this like a little electric moped, and he was able to get around 42.5 miles. So that's pretty impressive if you just want to use this as a moped and not as a bike. But no matter what, this has some of the best range that you can get with an electric bike of this type of power. And okay, so now for some extra details about this bike that I didn't talk about before. So this bike does have a walk assist mode, so you can press, I think, the down button for the pedal assist, and this will allow the bike to have a little bit more power when you're walking alongside of it and pushing it up a hill like this. But then also too, this bike doesn't come fully unlocked for the maximum speed. I think out of the box you can only go, I think, max around 20 miles per hour, but you can unlock the speed limiter, and I'm showing you this video clip from another YouTuber that shows you how to do it. It's pretty easy to do, but I'll leave this video linked down below in the description. And then on the handlebars, you do have this red switch that will allow you to change between which motors that you're using. So you can go single motor, either the front or the rear, or you can go dual motor, which I was at 99% of the time with this review. But the one thing about this switch is that it's not labeled. So out of the box, you don't know which side to press in to enable enable a certain motor. So that really just brings me to my overall just #1 gripe about this bike, because it's pretty much perfect. But I think just the fit and finish, like little design tweaks here and there, can make this bike from being an awesome, great bike to almost being very perfect. But I think the goal of this bike is to showcase the power and the speed. And that's where it gets its name, Grizzly, because grizzly bears are big, heavy animals that can run up to around 35 miles per hour, which is very similar to the top speed of this bike. And honestly, this bike is more on the electric moped side than it is a bicycle, but you get the best of both worlds with this. And I've watched a bunch of different comparison videos between like Super 73s and other electric bikes, and the Grizzly usually performs or outperforms some of those other bikes in a lot of the speed tests and the torque and all of that stuff. But yeah, that's all I got for this bike. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about it. Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell, and also hit that like button if you like this video. But like always, I do want to thank you for watching this, and I will catch you later. Peace. Now you also have this red switch right here, and this allows you to switch between the two batteries. So the God
Bleep,
damn it, what the
bleep.
fuck is that?
Bleep.
What is that? Ow,
Bleep.
shit. That
Bleep.
fucking hurt. What was that?
Bleep.
Shit. Now you also have this red switch right here.